What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other fantastic host of this show, Nick. And Nick, what is there to say at this point? We're 3-6. We're finally into our bye week. I think that's first and most important, aside of how are you, my good brother?
Well, for those that are just listening and not watching, I'm dressed in all black to show the death of the 2023 Rams season. It's all over. There's no postseason. Just give it up. Forget about it. Just probably the worst football game I've ever watched, maybe in the McVey era. God, horrible football. I'm good though.
Good. That's great. Before we get into this episode, make sure if you guys are enjoying the podcast so far that you guys are. Ram it. Still finding a way to ram it. Still finding a way to like and subscribe to the podcast because we will have a good episode today, and we will be rolling out more great episodes as the season progresses. Nick, obviously a really tough loss that we're coming off of. We're coming off of really a 4-week, I would say 5-week stretch. We're 1-4 in the last 5 weeks. And it seems like the bye week is very necessary. We're out without Matthew Stafford, without Ernest Jones, without Rob Havenstein. 2 of the 3 weight-bearing walls were able to play in this game. But I guess the simple question is, if it weren't Brett Rippon and it were Matthew Stafford, do you think the Rams win this game?
I mean, right off the bat, coming off last week with Dallas, there's so much to be frustrated about. Stafford doesn't have to make a diving thumb-first catch for a 2-point conversion in a meaningless game. And then on top of that, you draft this backup quarterback that should be able to come in and be better than Jordan Love, who is horrendous, and he doesn't start. So then Brett Rippon, who shouldn't even be on a football team. I mean, I watched backups this whole – Josh Dobbs doesn't know anybody on the Vikings team and throws 2 touchdowns and rushes 1 in. Like, there's no excuses for the poor quarterback performance that we saw today. And it's just – Stafford wins the game. I think Stetson Bennett wins the game. I think Josh Dobbs, not knowing anybody's name, wins the game. Brett Rippon was terrible. I hope he's off the team. Honestly, Dress or Win might win the game. So at least he has some reps with the Canadian team.
You said something really interesting about Matthew Stafford, how the play calling we talked about this week's prior was when the play call was designed to go to Matthew Stafford on the 2-point conversion. He re-injured his thumb. The same thing was happening with Tyler Higbee in this game, which I thought was really strange. Like McVey talked about after the game that Tyler Higbee was banged up. They still had him in line. They still had him blocking. They're still calling his number in specific situations. Like, to me, that's just like situational stuff that you could very, very easily correct by drafting a tight end, which they did, or trusting in a third-year tight end that played in the Super Bowl, or is he in his 4th year, Bryson Hopkins? I don't even know. But regardless, the Brett Rippon, dress or win, Matthew Stafford conversation is going to continue. And I thought what was really interesting was I saw this quote from Shawn McVey, and I believe it was from Gary Klein, and Jordan Rodriguez had reposted. The quote read, "McVay sounded as if Matthew Stafford would be ready for Seattle. He asked if Brett Rippon would start if Stafford cannot. He said, we're going to look at a lot of different things over this break, but I'm optimistic that I don't even have to think that that's something that we have to worry about." What?
So he's saying that hopefully Stafford comes back, but if Stafford doesn't come back, there's like a potential we're going to bring in an outside guy, I think is what.
Is there?
I mean, I think that's my takeaway from that, because what other a lot of things are you going to look at? And then that's also admitting we're boned if Stafford can't play because we need to go outside of this organization or to our 4th string.
The backup quarterback conversation will continue. And it's obviously going to be something that we talk about as this episode progresses. We'll talk about the Rams' draft position, right, and how they could potentially look at a quarterback as they look ahead for 2024. But like Brett Rippon in this game, he was 13 of 28 for 140 yards, 2 turnovers. The Packers scored 7 points off of the Rippon double fumble. I think it was in the first quarter or the second quarter, earlier on in the game. That was a 7-play. Yeah, it was 7-play, 41-yard possession. I think the next Packers possession that they scored on was in result of a missed field goal. So it was the Packers. They fumbled on back-to-back possessions, and then the Rams responded with a punt. And then a Lucas Habarisic missed 49-yard field goal after making his first. Yeah, in the rain. It was raining. His first 50-plus yard field goal a few minutes before, which was a 52-yard attempt. But the Packers ended up scoring on that drive. There's another 7-play, 53-yard possession. And then the other touchdown that they scored was off of the Brett Rippon turnover. And for the people that were asking, oh, why was Benny Sco in this game? Why was Demarcus Robinson in this game? It's because there's some continuity there, right? It's because that's what he is. He's a camp arm. And in getting the reps with some of the third-string receivers, some of the backup players, there's going to be some comfortability there. So that's just some of the stuff that you saw within this game. And that's like the only amount of time that I want to spend on the recap. I don't even really want to talk about anything else that happened in this game because, like, having to watch Brett Rippon, like, it's all synonymous with the Super Bowl hangover. It's all synonymous with the lack of preparation in the draft for the quarterback, drafting Stetson Bennett in round 4. Maybe, that's a very, very personal situation. Hopefully that all works itself out. We're hoping for Stetson's case and for his family that all works itself out. But you still have to be able to address the backup quarterback situation. And I think in situations like this, Josh Dobbs' name was thrown around. It's an in-division trade. That stuff's not always going to work itself out. But, like, in these kind of situations, if a weight-bearing wall goes down, if Cooper Kupp goes down, you have Puka Nacua. If Aaron Donald goes down, at least you drafted 2 interior defense players, two edge players. Like, if Matthew Stafford goes down, you really had nothing.
Right.
And that's what it's ugly head in this game.
I'm going to take a page out of Stephen A. Smith's book here when he's talking about the first move that Phil Jackson did as an executive of the New York Knicks was sign Lamar Odom, who was on crack. I am giving all love and attention and everything to Stetson Bennett and his family, the person. I hope he's okay. But you did not do your homework, Les Snead, Shawn McVey. You drafted somebody that has the problem, and that's horrible. Like, I don't want to be sitting here talking about it, but that's who you picked. And that's the person that's supposed to step in these situations, who's supposed to be there for the pillar, for the wall. And he can't be. And then now, once again, under the McVay era, we're seeing the worst backup play in the entire league. And it's just, when you have a quarterback as banged up as Stafford, you need to address that question. I mean, it's the second year this has happened, almost at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And there's no Baker Mayfield to save you from mediocrity this time. So, I mean, it's just, look at yourself in the mirror. You're not a real team. You're not a serious team. And yeah, the list in the top 6 that you're going to be in is going to be draft order and not, wild card spot. And it's pathetic.
Right. Yeah. And
the
you know what?
Stuff is horrible. Also, one more thing about game recap. I know you didn't want to talk about it. Speaking of Ben Skoranek, the Rams early on in the game, they get a run.
Yeah, the
5
reverse.
yards. They get a run for 4 yards, and then it's 3rd and 1. And what do? Jet sweep with Ben Skoranek. You just got 9 yards on the ground.
I know, but if he doesn't slip, it's perfect execution. I agree that it wasn't necessary. You got a little bit too cute there, but like, it's a good transition because the situational stuff is really interesting. Cooper Kupp was speaking very honestly. It sounded like directly from his heart on how defenses are addressing the Rams and preparing the Rams weekly. Like, recognizing and diagnosing and adjusting on the fly is where this offense needs to do a better job coming out of the bye. And that's what we were sold. We were sold a false bill of rights in the offseason that this offense was going to be able to hold up the defense and the special teams unit. And then at times they were going to be able to play complementary football and squeak out some wins. But Cooper Kupp was pretty adamant over the fact that he said it wasn't specifically a coaching issue, and it hasn't been a coaching issue, as the coaches have done a really good job of preparing in all scenarios, but more so of the players knowing exactly what to do in the middle of a play, like being able to anticipate things and not be able to predetermine what the play or the read is what Cooper Kupp mentioned, and being able to miss on both the coaching staff and then on what you're getting on a specific look pre or post snap. Like, all of that stuff has to work in tandem. I think there's some serious adjustments that you have to be able to make coming out of the bye. More specifically, it's the situational play calling, and it's on McVay's shoulders, but it's also the execution in the players, and just be able to adjust and not exactly predetermine what the game plan is. And I think that the Rams and Shawn McVay fall victim to doing that. And it's an adjustment that they can make up coming out of the bye. It's an adjustment that the players can make. Like, simple. We talked about this for a couple of weeks. Simplify the game plan and do the things that you're really good at. Try to continuously develop some of these young kids, which I think they've done a really good job of. Kobe Turner, and let's name some others. Kobe, who else is Byron Young, Steve Avila. Like these
I
are
mean,
all.
it's honestly hard to think about positives right now at all, really. And I know you're looking for like into the future and like into positivity, but I mean, like you said about the offense, if they're not going to grow, there's nothing to look forward to. I don't see this as like a better team with those good pieces. I mean, Puka Nacua obviously the best from the class, but still, like it's not a great future. It doesn't seem like. I mean, and to steal a page out of Colin Cowherd's book here, I know I'm just going through the announcers that I love, or whatever, not announcers. They are. I feel like the Rams are kind of like the Marvel universe of the NFL. They have shown like they have hits. They have huge hits in the past, and they were big Super Bowl hits. And now the formula is getting stale, and they are doing nothing to change it. And people are realizing that, and they're checking out.
They're trying to advertise the Marvels, and the Marvels are Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, and no one wants to see that show without the necessary supplemental cast. And that's the unfortunate thing is like you're going to look at yourself in the standings, right? Because it's still competitive in the NFC West, and you're going to look at games like Seattle and Arizona as potential win scenarios over the next couple of weeks coming out of the bye. But right now it's San Francisco at the top, and then Seattle 5-3, and then the Rams at 3-6, and the Cardinals at 1-8. So, the season isn't all but lost, and I'm not trying to be overly optimistic because I feel like that is the role that I'm placed in this podcast. Is like, oh, you're the optimistic one that's just overwhelmingly positive about the Rams, and they buy into every situation and every word that comes out of Les Snead and Shawn McVey's mouth. Not necessarily the situation. We've been very critical of this organization over this past year specifically because of what they sold us in the offseason. And I think that's why it's so confusing. And this is going to be the transition of like the 5-6 important questions that I feel like all fans are really asking themselves. And it was Tanji, this is actually in a thread with Seattle Rams and 3K. If you guys are on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it, it's being framed as a sneaky tank to where the front office and the coaching staff is saying all the right things, but your play calling and lack of moves and your draft pick positioning makes it feel like it's more of a tank than it actually is. But maybe in those terms, it's a sneaky tank. So I like the thought process behind that was like, you're not the Philadelphia 76ers, right? You're not trust the process. You're not purposefully losing games to try and get the first overall pick for 5 consecutive years. You're trying to develop supplemental talent to eventually grow them, maybe 1 or 2 of them into core contracts, and try to holistically put the picture back together for 24 and 25. I mean, that was kind of the idea going into the season, right? It was like, if you could win 9 games, great. I hope that they're going to win 9 games. That was my prediction earlier on was, hopefully this is a young team. If they develop in the right directions and the front office and the coaching staff and the players all join forces and do exactly what they said they were going to do, then that could happen. But right now we're seeing the other side of it, which is injuries piling up and just lack of execution in big moments.
Yeah, I mean, sneaky tank. That could be. I feel like that's almost a cop out because I feel like they are in all of these games, and it doesn't feel like they're blowing them on purpose. I mean, the Bengals game should win. The Steelers game, that's another one that should easily be a win. I think they're trying to win. Maybe they're not totally upset with the results, but still, I feel like even if you have a young team like this one, with pieces that you want to, hope make the next step going into next year, you want to show them a culture that is real and legit. And when you go out there and you do stuff like this and you start a season with Brett Maher as your kicker and you don't have a realistic backup option, this is kind of, they are getting everything that they deserve right now, unfortunately. And it is a pain in the ass to watch it through.
So I want to ask this to the fans, everybody that's listening, to you specifically, because I think you'll probably give the best answer amongst anyone. But Are we at the point where you feel like the Super Bowl magic has officially worn off? I can't say that I personally am there quite yet because like my devastation and anger would be oozing through the airwaves. I'm pretty level-headed right now, but I want to know your opinion on the topic.
I feel like the magic is gone when I can no longer say, hey, at least they won the Super Bowl, because now I've said that recently to a 49ers fan who was helping fix my car like during my last service. And he was like, come on, man, that was forever ago. And I like it kind of like sunk me in my heart. And I was like, but it feels like yesterday.
How about when we were at the Eagles game and we said, don't you think the Rams' Super Bowl is legitimate enough to be celebrated? And they were like, no, that was the COVID year. It was like,
this guy was an idiot. Yeah. I was like, so no one's going to say it was a COVID year during the Tom Brady 7th Super Bowl win, which actually was the COVID year.
Right?
Yeah. And then the following year when, there were no COVID restrictions at any point, then all of a sudden it's the it's the COVID year. I just think that was a dumb Eagles fan because obviously he wouldn't have said that if the Eagles had won the Super Bowl that year.
Of course.
But yeah, for me, I think the magic's gone. It doesn't really hit the same. Like, I don't want to wear my hat that has the Super Bowl patch on it anymore because it just feels like passe. Obviously banners fly forever and we have that forever and that memory will live on. But at this point, two seasons in a row where you're 3-6 and you are insignificant in the NFL talk, it almost feels like now back to like pre-2018 where I would watch a show like Colin Cowherd's show and I would just beg them to talk about the Rams because they were just so insignificant. And now it's like, and the Rams lost. And like, that's all you get.
I almost don't want them to be talking about the Rams at this point, right? Because it's not anything could be positive. It was overwhelmingly positive the first 3 weeks of the season. Can't believe what Shawn McVey is doing with this group, these young rookies. This is unbelievable. He's putting teams away. They're scoring 30-plus points. He's the Shawn McVey of old. He's rejuvenated, and it comes all crashing down to the point where Samuel L. Jackson is making comments on it.
I don't know what this is about. I mean, this guy doesn't talk about football or anything but movies for like 35 years of existence. And then all of a sudden he tweets, at what point do we start the Rams coaching conversation? Question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point. So he's a fan of the Rams? I wouldn't have known.
I didn't even know he was a football fan. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea that Samuel L. Jackson had any affiliation with the Rams, but why does he have something specific against Shawn McVey? And why is he so tuned into the LA narrative to the point where he knows if a Los Angeles team goes 8-18 over 2 seasons that the coach should potentially be on the hot seat, even though in no way are either the two on the podcast saying that in any form?
No. I would love it if you had our dad's follow-up tweet to Samuel L. though, because he kind of like low-key agrees with him where he's like, hey, Sam, today's the first time I'm having that thought to myself. And that's totally fair if you're a Rams fan and you're thinking that, because 2 seasons in a row, and especially if you're like just an LA fan in general.
Well,
stuff moves different around.
What have you done for me recently?
Yeah, it moves different. The Lakers won a 2020 championship. After 2 seasons of mediocre play, that coach was gone. And he got hired again, of course, because he's a great coach, but they're not here to sit around. And I think football's a different beast. So, you can't really like just think about firing McVay yet. Next season, if it looks like this next season, I think the conversation could be legitimate. I would hope not, because I would want him to be our coach for the long foreseeable future. But maybe, Les Snead definitely would be on the hot seat.
It's if they're 3-6 at this point next year, somebody's getting fired.
Yeah.
I would say that's definitely the case. I don't know if it's going to be Les or Shawn. I would hope their records are totally switched, because you look at some of the point differentials here, like you look at Seattle. Seattle's put up 171 points. We've put up 178, but because we've given up 204 to their 175, that's the difference, right? Like That's a 5-3 football team to a 3-5, 3-6 football team. And it's the difference of being out in the middle of the season, looking upward, and the difference of being on top of the division if you're the Seattle Seahawks. Tied with the San Francisco 49ers for first place in the division. So
I
it's
think
really
they
interesting.
no longer. I think didn't they lose again? So now they're because the Niners had a bye. So are they both 5-3?
No, yeah, they're both 5-3 because Seattle had their bye already. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the coaching discussion, I think it gets to the point where people start to get impatient when the conversation comes up of coach bingo. In this specific scenario, it's Shawn McVey bingo. And I think it's when some of his isms and some of the things that he says consistently after losses, and growing up in the Philadelphia market and listening to Andy Reid in press conferences in Philadelphia, he was the king of saying, I got to do a better job at that. I got to do a better job. And it rode him all the way into the end of his career in Philadelphia. And then his rejuvenation with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. But these kind of isms that Shawn McVey has been saying as of recent, but I got to do a better job of getting players prepared. I have faith in guys in the locker room. Now we have 2 weeks to get it cleaned up. The defense fought hard for 60 minutes. Like, these are all things that I'm afraid
I do a better job myself at preparing. That one, I think, is the worst. I hear that one every week.
Well, that's really tough. And another one, like it's humbling for sure. We'll go back and look at the film and make adjustments. There were a handful of looks that we thought we could have taken advantage of, but couldn't. Like, this is when it starts to get a little bit scary. It's like when people start to bring these isms to your attention, when people start to get a little bit aggravated with what the coach speak is. I'm not quite at that point with Shawn, and I don't think I will be like you said, for another year if the record is at this point next year. And he's just the best thing that I feel like has happened in my personal football watching career outside of Dick Vermeil and Kurt Warner. So it's hard for me that's going to be like cutting ties with, Aaron Donald or Cooper Kupp. So
yeah. I mean, definitely. He was, he's in that, he's in the warm-up video before the Rams game. He gets his own, like solo shot of
your
him,
favorite
like,
thing,
the camera with like the backdrop and everything. He's a huge part of the success and bringing the Los Angeles Rams into the conversation of like a real team for like 5-6 years in a row. So, I mean, you kind of want to talk about the Super Bowl and like if the magic is gone. It feels a little bit like we made a deal with the devil and we are now like sitting here with the consequences in our hands and being like, okay, we did, it was like what the Sixers did, trust the process. Like, you're going to give all this stuff away so you can get to that point and then hopefully get over the top. The fact that they successfully got over the top, I mean, I still think that gives them probably one more year of this if it's the case. Like let's say we are here 3-6 next year. I still think everybody's fine. Maybe
I think they're extended.
I think
through
Raheem would be
25.
the one.
Also.
Yeah.
They're extended.
So, like,
I think their contracts go through the year or through 25 rather. So.
It is tough though, and I do think the drafting needs to be better, like as a whole. Should
okay.
Get
so
way
two points I want to say too, because I think your drafting methodology is way different when you have a cap-heavy roster and you have a Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, Devon Miller, and all these other outstanding players, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, all top-heavy at the top of your roster, and you're trying to find supplemental talent that will complement those players specifically for a 4-year period to see you through that window in case you don't win in 2021. That, to me, was the methodology for Les Snead way back when. 4 years ago. Now it's how could I find players in later rounds that can be starters or potential core contracts and really put the priority on finding these players that can grow into what you would hope a Cooper Kupp is or an Aaron Donald. And now with guys like Puka Nacua and Steve Avila and Byron Young and Kobe Turner and Ethan Evans, those core of rookies, I feel like gives you a better outlook and a better, at least a template for what you should be looking for the next couple of years. Not what you did in 19, 20, and 21, but what you're doing in 23 and 24 with potentially the 6th pick in the draft.
I hate this picture so much. How are we above the Packers? Oh, because we just lost to them?
Yeah. And we have more losses in total.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, horrible. 3-6. I mean, we're in the conversation with the Giants and New England right now, which are like some of the worst teams. I think right now, with Brett Rippon starting, we're the bottom of the NFL. I think we lose to every team above us.
Wait, I mean, yeah, because there's New England, Chicago. Those games are both probably washes, or they're close. 6-3, Jeff Fisher football. Carolina, good young quarterback. Arizona is getting Kyler Murray back. We'll see in 3 weeks if that's going to be a good game. So, yeah, I mean, you don't want to be the bottom of barrel of these kind of teams. But I thought 2-3 weeks ago, we were far better than the Green Bay Packers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Denver Broncos. And they're all better so far in the standings after.
Yeah. And it's just, Stafford plays and we're 4-4 right now. And this podcast is completely different in every way. I mean, we're not talking about potential, Samuel Jackson stepping in as the GM.
Yeah. I mean, if you flip it a couple of weeks prior, instead of being 3-6, if you're 5 say you're 5-4, right? You win the 2 weeks prior, you beat Pittsburgh, you beat Dallas, and you lose to Green Bay, but you're still 5-4. Hypothetical situation. But I think what's really interesting when you get to the draft, are you invested in a quarterback? If we get a top 6,
yeah, you have to be.
That's what we failed to mention here. Was like, you got a top 6 pick. You're going to go Caleb Williams and then Drake Maye as the 2 top quarterbacks, and then Bo Nix was mocked from Oregon to go number 6 overall today by PFF, which I thought was just absolutely outrageous. Never draft that kid that highly, but remains to be seen. Are they going to draft the quarterback? Are they going to draft the left tackle? Are they going to draft a premier edge rusher? I think you have to go in that direction, or you trade the 6 overall pick for a proven player.
I think that's more likely what they'll do, because I think they still think next year is like a year that they can like seriously compete with Stafford, who's got 2 more years on his deal, I think, after this year.
Yeah. And they have almost no experience outside of Jared Goff paying first-round picks. Les Snead hasn't paid a first-round pick in going on 9 years since 2016, which is pretty outrageous. 8 years.
Just don't. Oh boy, like the quarterback conversation should have been dealt with. I mean, they thought it was dealt with Stetson Bennett, to have somebody come into this situation and win a game in Green Bay. But
in their defense, though, it seems like the only quarterback that is a late round surprise. I guess you can consider Will Levis that player, but he went in the second round, right? Like Jaron Hall got knocked out of the game.
Yeah,
Clayton Tune can't really put Josh Dobbs got replaced.
There's no reason to draft him in the first place.
Yeah.
Like at all. Like
the one kid
go get
was
somebody else. Get Taylor Heineke. Like
the one kid that was a really big question mark was like,
you didn't need to get a quarterback there. It was just a bad decision. And the picture of them high-fiving like they got their next guy, and like it was the best move ever, is just burned into my retina.
They were trying to save money, is really what they were trying to do.
Dumb.
Cost-friendly option, trying to replace Baker Mayfield's production with somebody who played in a pro-style offense. But we were talking about, like, they went to the Purdue Pro Day, so that's why we really liked Aiden O'Connell and the kid that killed us. I think, tell me if this is incorrect. Can you Google Carrington Valentine College? Because I'm pretty sure he went to Purdue. Because Aiden O'Connell and Carrington Valentine were 2 players that I really wanted late in the draft. And Aiden O'Connell went on to start for the Raiders this week. And your Raiders pick, Nick, was a huge, huge hit. That was a guaranteed victory. And then what happened on the other side? Like that's what's going on right now. So
yeah, Kentucky.
Oh, right, that's right. He went to Kentucky. But Carrington Valentine, 7th round player, and he was great, right? He replaced Rasul Douglas, and we were like, oh, he's how great of a replacement. So he's a 7th round rookie. Came in and played great against Brett Rippon.
I that's what I mean about Stetson Bennett. Like 4th round, there's just no excuse, especially when you're supposed to be drafting people that are going to be playing on the team and make an impact. What was Puka Nacua, also 4th round?
He was a 5th round pick.
5th round. Yeah. Like,
I just want to be clear, and I'm gonna put this face up because this is gonna be me reading the comments about us bashing Stetson Bennett. We absolutely pray for his family, pray for him. I hope the situation works itself out 100%. He's hopefully on the right path. McVey said he's had some contact with him. So please don't comment and tell us that we are mean about Stetson Bennett because we do care about the kid, care about the organization. We just wanted the draft pick to work out. And we would be highly critical of any fourth-round rookie that was promised who's going to come in and be a decent backup for this organization for the next 10, 15 years. And he wasn't even a fraction of that. Not even.
No, I mean, he's also lowest rated quarterback in the preseason. I don't Stetson Bennett. I wish the man the best 100%. It's not what we're saying. I think it's fair to grade somebody on their football skill for a football podcast. But yeah, I mean, Brett Rippon, worse than Stetson Bennett. So if you're a Stetson Bennett fan, there you go.
It's the flippin' Rippon. Man, bad quarterback
play.
Rip
was the worst tweet I've ever seen.
Bad quarterback play is not fun to watch when you are the Rams' offensive line. You're in the 2023 season. You're coming out of what was last year. Like, it just, none of it works together. So here's to hoping that the bye week, which it's necessary for the both of us, it's necessary for the Rams' entire organization. Week 10 bye week is way too late. I'm glad that it's happening. So hope you guys enjoy your bye week. We may be back later this week with another episode. We will see. But otherwise, go Rams, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, it was the really difficult game to watch. So if you made it all the way through that game, you probably made it all the way through this episode. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Horns up, guys.
Peace. Go Rams.